Hey friends, today I want to talk about status regulation, and which is when it's something I have been thinking about all my life, all my adult conscious life, teenage life, but I never quite had this phrase or this frame to think about it with, and I find it to be a very succinct, very evocative and generative phrase. The first person who mentioned this phrase to me that I remember was Patrick McKenzie, Patio11, on Twitter. When I was so it all started with this. I've been feeling stressed and frustrated in some intangible way I can't quite explain for a couple of months now, and I feel like I'm going through some kind of transition or threshold change. I've crossed some threshold. I'm going through some transition that feels like change. And where do I start? I guess, so this is kind of Twitter specific. And the cool thing about coming to YouTube after posting on Twitter is that I am not... I'm like moderately, mildly Twitter famous in a circle of people, I guess, and that has pros and cons, that has benefits and it has costs, and it's kind of tacky to talk about the costs too much too often, and yet, shouldn't I have the freedom to be as tacky as I'd like, right? But I'm still circling around what I'm trying to say. And on YouTube, it's I'm not famous on YouTube. I only have like 900 subs, probably half of whom don't even log into YouTube anymore. So I'm freer on YouTube to say whatever I like and not have any worry, or have a much smaller sense of worry that I'm gonna get some kind of response that I don't like. And when I say this out loud, I'm like, should any response bother you? Should you care about responses? Does it matter? Can't you just say whatever you like and just not care about what people say in response? I want to say yes, but I find that in practice it's very difficult, and it's difficult for me. I don't know if it's equally difficult for everyone, but I'm convinced, or I believe, it's a hypothesis, I'm happy to be challenged on this, but I believe that most people live in... Fear feels like a too strong a word, but assuming that it's less strong than what I'm saying, most people live in fear of what other people are going to say about them, and I think so. I think this is true. I think most people recognize that people who try to do things receive criticism, and people who don't do anything don't really receive as much criticism, and the criticism is not specific to what you're doing because you're not doing anything. So inaction is incentivized, right, by the public. So the public, and one of my talking points is that the public doesn't know how to be a good public, and it's insufficiently educated on how to be a good public, and so there's the tragedy of the commons. And part of the tragedy of the commons here is that people who are trying to do things will receive criticism, and people who are not trying to do anything, like whatever criticism they receive for their inaction is much less potent, and the potency of feedback is something that I guess affects different people differently. But I think if you are like me, which you probably might not be, but all I can speak about is from my experience. If you're like me and you care deeply about things and you want to make things and you want to understand things, then you will pay attention to anything that happens, and anything that happens in your sphere, anything that happens around you. So I have high, in the big 5 personality traits or whatever, I have very high openness, which is why I talk so much and I'm so open about my life and my feelings and my thoughts. I have high openness and I have high agreeableness, I guess. I'm not so sure about that, but I try to find common ground with people, and that sounds like a platitude, but what this means in practice is that I try to find common ground even with people who are insulting me, even with people who are some other people would consider villainous. I'm always trying to find consensus. I'm always trying to find how can we... So even if I disagree with you and I think you're wrong about something, I will try to find some point of agreement so that we can get on the same page, so that you will receive my criticism better. right? Because I don't see how it's useful if I criticize you and you don't listen, right? And just I think about this so much, and I worry about it so much. And it's not cool to say that you worry about things, but I do. You know, like one of the common like pop wisdom phrases is you shouldn't care about what other people think. And I think that phrase is compressed and condensed. It doesn't really mean you shouldn't care about what people think. It's more of like you shouldn't let what other people think get inside your head and get you down, in a sense, right? But you know, I have always been interested in what other people think, because even if what you're thinking is wrong, the way in which you're wrong might reveal something. It might be interesting in some way. Like if somebody once replied to one of my tweets with, you know, if someone calls you the wrong name, you don't get upset or offended by being called the wrong name. It's just like, you know, if I'm Visa and if you called me like Jack, I'm like, I'm not Jack, I'm Visa. I don't get worked up about one person calling me Jack. But if dozens and dozens of people call me Jack, I start to go a little bit crazy, right? I'm like, why are all these people calling me Jack? Do I have Jack on my t-shirt somewhere? Like what is it? Is there some guy out there named Jack who looks like me? Like, if there is this consistent message that you're getting from other people, even if they're all wrong and even if they're all misunderstanding what they're seeing or saying, like it's something that I described it somewhere else as it's a kind of mass coordinated, decentralized but coordinated gaslighting, where everyone says something that isn't quite true. It might be true to them, but the way in which it is true to them is because of their respective conditioning or their respective background or whatnot. So, where am I going with this? I want to talk about status regulation. It's all related, right? And status regulation. So in practice, status regulation is when you try to do something that is higher status than what is allowed or what you deserve given your existing circumstances and your image and your just your persona, your vibe, whatever. When you seem to be trying to step into bigger shoes than you deserve, when you seem to be going after something that's bigger than what is meant for you, right? And all that's bullshit, but like, people have ideas about what these things are. When people see you doing that, they will retaliate. They will try to pull you down. And I have had experiences like this all my life that I have never quite put into a coherent kind of framework. So when I used to play in a band, when you first start playing in a band, some people will joke, wow, are you guys rock stars? Are you guys people will different people will respond differently. But what I'm talking about is kind of the inevitability of the negative responses. There will also be some like weirdly positive, over positive responses, but that's not as, I don't think that's as guaranteed. And but I mean, that's just a separate issue that I don't want to talk about right now. But it is also an issue. Like you have, like when you have crazy fanboys and people who kind of like saccharine sweet about whatever you're doing, that's also kind of troubling. But I personally find that easier to kind of allow to pass through my mind and not take hold of me. Whereas criticisms, I think, often have some grain of truth, maybe, or it's just maybe it's a loss aversion in the human psyche. Like in ancient times, if your peers don't like you, you get ostracized, you die. And so we are very, very much practically wired to be careful not to be disliked by the people who we count on, right? Or by anybody. And again, people are different about this to different degrees, and some people struggle with it more than others, right? But yeah, so what I'm saying, you're playing in a band. So I have this thing where I was organizing shows as a band with other bands, and I think my first couple of shows, people were kind of like, my close friends were supportive, and other people didn't really care. Like, nobody knows who we are, so it's like, and your friends will show up for you a couple of times as it's a kind of unwritten social rule, I think, that if your friends are trying something, like they have an art, like your friend is a painter, and one of their paintings is at an exhibit, right? I think this happens with in the office with Pam Beasley's painting, and like she tells everyone, and Michael Scott's the only one who shows up. But I mean, I digress a bit. The point is that there's this subtle expectation that you show up for your friends when they try something once, like that. And it's a kind of I scratch your back, you scratch my back thing. Like, I support you in your attempt and you support me in my attempt. And generally what happens is people don't really rise above their station. They kind of, they do whatever they do at the level of where they are. And it's like a hobby, or it's like a casual thing. And it kind of, if things stay at that level, there's no harm, no foul. Nobody, everyone kind of enjoys themselves and it goes back to their sitcom lives. But if you try to go beyond that and you try to do bigger and bigger things, you try to be more ambitious, you will start being noticed. And I remember this happening with my band. When my band started playing multiple shows, I mean, so some of my friends, they support, they came to show support the first couple of times, and then after that they're like, oh, you're still doing that, that's cool. Like, but they're not gonna come to every single one of my show because they don't actually like my band that much. Like, they like, if they had seen that band and they didn't know who I was, they wouldn't even care. It's like they're not interested in music to begin with. They're just showing support to a friend. But as I play more and more shows, I start being noticed by the people who go to all the shows or who care about all the shows. The scene. There is a scene, right? And people start... And so when you're in the scene, now, some people who have been in the scene longer than you have, especially, right? They will notice that you are getting attention. They will notice that you are around. And even if, and so some of their criticisms will be things like, who are these guys and why are they around so much? Their music is not that great. It's true that the music is not that great. I will be the first to say my band is not that great. So the follow-up is then, why are you playing so many shows? Because I want to? Why not? So there's this implicit rule that only the best bands get to play as many shows as they like. It's I kind of get the ground level reasoning, but to some degree, your band can only get better if you play more shows. Like, it's through practice and experience that you get better. And I think this is true in a lot of fields and in a lot of contexts where, let's say you are someone trying to get a date, right? And I don't know, just think of a context where you're trying to become a public speaker and you're trying to speak at events or whatever it is. There's this sense of you have to already be good. People don't want to see you, or well, when I say people, I'm talking about the subset of people who are loud and noisy about what they don't like. And I think the vast majority of people don't really have strong feelings either way. And some people will be supportive. And it's very important to actively find the people who are supportive, because the people who are the opposite of supportive, they will find you. So people will say things like, oh, you're constructing an echo chamber when you're looking for supporters and you're encouraging a base of support. Yes, that is true, but there is also like this anti-echo chamber that coordinates to prevent you, to discourage you and to prevent you from doing anything substantial, because they just don't like it. They don't like anybody trying, because it reveals to them, like, because if that person who is not very good can try and succeed, then I could have tried and succeeded, but I didn't try because I didn't think I was good enough. And so I have to, there's this phrase I have on one of my alts, which is like, people who feel constrained by a culture will enforce it, which means that if I don't allow myself to try and fail, I have to criticize anybody else who tries and fails, because who do they think they are, right? And this strikes me as a very suboptimal way of being as a public, as a scene, as a community. We have to encourage people to try and fail. We have to encourage people to make attempts, to try new things, to get things wrong, to struggle and be lousy even potentially. And when I say this, I find myself zooming out and thinking like, well, the haters are always gonna be there, and you have to learn to roll with them. Yeah, maybe after I make this video, I might not talk about this anymore. But I right now I feel compelled to talk about it, and I wish someone had laid this out for me more clearly. So here I am passing it on. I'm laying it out for other people who may not have considered this yet. And yeah. What else? So one of the thread that I made, right? Somebody I asked my Twitter, what is my problem? Like, what is Visagan V's problem? And I know that I invited criticism, and most of the criticisms were, well, I would say about 60 to 70% of the criticisms were kind of toothless and inaccurate in a way that like it was not even wrong, like kind of like, okay, like I don't agree, I don't disagree, maybe I agree, I don't really see that it's a problem. It is what it is. It doesn't really bother me. About 10 to 20% were very good and accurate criticisms that I appreciate. So somebody pointed out that I do have some kind of status anxiety that manifests indirectly as a kind of bravado. I think that's true. I think that is an issue that I have that I would like to work through, and I'm very appreciative of the person who said that. There's a couple of other small things like that. I gotta go and look it up again. But the goal of me asking is, it's not just to find out the correct things, but also to hear the things that are kind of I don't really agree, but okay, it's good for me to know that that's what you think. And then I would say about 5 to 10%, or maybe another 10 to 20%, I'm not sure. But like, some people said things that I thought were fundamentally wrong. Like, like, I would accept the criticism if I thought it was correct. And, I feel compelled to... Well, so it's not like I reply immediately, oh, fuck you, you're wrong, right? Like, I consider it for a while, I think about it. And I consider how it can be true, because usually things that seem like so, and very often things that seem wrong in one aspect can also be true in some other aspect. So I try to find that truth. There were, I think, 2 things that I found that I should follow up on and elaborate on to explain my frame, right? And when I say that, some people feel that I am rebutting the criticisms, which I don't mean to do. But if there's a disparity in our audience size, so if they have like 100 followers and I have 20,000 followers, people think that just me responding to something is me like punching down, which I kind of get, but you can't I don't think it's fair to say that I'm not allowed to respond to things, I get it. I don't want people who are newer to the platform to feel attacked or threatened, or and I feel like I make a substantial effort to persuade everyone around me to not attack anybody. Like, I'm very against dunking, especially on small accounts. Like, I like, in the very, very rare instance that I dunk on someone, it's usually like a journalist or a public figure, a blue check, right? Like, but like, if it's just some casual person, I try, if I a lot of the time I leave them alone and don't say anything. Otherwise I might reply to them directly. I very rarely quote, I'm guessing if you investigate my behavior and you look at my tweets, I'm probably misrepresenting what I'm saying, because it's probably less rare than I'm saying. But I try not to dunk on people. I try to quote tweet only when I feel like I have an expansion of what I feel like I can expand on what has been said. And so it's like the conversation continues, right? I'm never trying to shut someone up. I'm always trying to move forward and seek agreement, right? So one thing a person said was that like I'm coercive. Well, again, I might be misremembering the specifics, but I don't. At the first glance, I don't agree, but I'm open to hearing more about how I might be. But I've seen what coercive behavior looks like, and I hate it. I've hated it every time somebody tried to coerce me into something. And I try my absolute best to make sure that anybody I'm talking to understands that they don't have to reply, they don't have to do anything, they don't have to listen to me, they don't have to, you don't have to do anything. It's and recently I saw one of my friends bully another one of my, like pretty much bully another one of my friends into, they were saying things like, I don't even want to get into specifics, but I witnessed someone coercing someone else into trying to do something, like they were almost shaming them for not joining in on a dunk, and I would never do that. Like that's despicable to me. I now have a lower opinion of that person than before. But like, if it looks like I'm being coercive just because I have some audience, like that's, I don't know what to say about that. It's an ongoing tension. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing that somebody said that I don't agree with was, they said you are incapable of holding an opinion that would make people dislike you. That frustrated me a lot, because I remember how much people disliked me when I was growing up, when I was a teenager. And, I choose to be agreeable, and so at some point I was very disagreeable in my attempt to find agreement. Like when I was a teenager, I would get into arguments with people, but I would always go into it assuming that the other person is kind of like me, and that after a heated argument we would both be like, oh, you know what, you're right about this, I'm right about that, and like, we both understand things better now, and cool. Like, I never want to shut people down, I never want to shut people up. I just want to have conversations and understand each other's point of view better. And when I did that, people found me loud, disagreeable, obnoxious, annoying, and I disliked that very much. I did not want to be that person. I never wanted to be an asshole. I wanted to be, like when I say likable, I don't mean I want you to like me. I mean, it's more of like, I wanted people to think that guy did put in the work. He's thoughtful. He's done the reading. He understands what's going on. I like him because of that, not because he's so, I don't know, friendly. But I mean, it's so tangled up. Like, I want to be liked. I wanted to be liked for being right, I think, and I wanted to be right about things. But I found that could become a bit of a trap, where because you want to be liked for being right, you avoid any situation where you might be wrong. And so you kind of stay in this little bubble where you always win. And that disgusted me in some way, and I set out to change that. And I let go of a bunch of things. I tried to do new things, try new things, fail in different ways, and I think I succeeded at that. So there's like this and it's an infinite game, right? So there's this additional layer on top where it is wrong to be right all the time, and it is right to be wrong some of the time. You know what I mean? But I went through this period of time, and Benjamin Franklin had this, and I think George Washington also had some version of this. With Ben Franklin, he realized that, like, being disagreeable and like, insulting people and stuff, like, it doesn't help. It doesn't fix you can't make progress that way. And I agree. And so this person comes along and is like, and I appreciate this person for saying this, because him saying it made me say a bunch of things in response, and then think about something, and then change my mind about something. And so I'm grateful to him for saying this, which I am in like simultaneous agreement and disagreement with. So he said, you're incapable of holding an opinion that make people dislike you. I then said, like, let's do this. Here's a thread of, I was born with people disliking me, which is true, because my parents are of different castes, and there are people who believe that, the children of intercaste marriages are blasphemies who should die. Like, there are people, not everyone obviously, but there are people who think I don't deserve to live because I'm of the wrong parentage. Right? That's a real thing. Like, I'm not, I don't worry about this every day, but like, it's a thing. Like, I was born disliked, like how Trevor Noah was born a crime. Like, we have that small thing in, like, for him, he had to live with that. And for me, I'm like, my parents in a different country, so I don't live with that day to day, but I know it, And yeah, I'm a minority. People dislike me just for being for that. But anyway, skipping that. So I listed out a bunch of disagreeable-ish opinions that I had, like 20 of them. Things like, some of you are cowards, and I don't think it's bad to be a coward, and I think I'm a coward too, and I try to love people despite it. But like, if I tell someone you're a coward, like, that's not something that they're gonna like at an object level. But it turns out that when I did say all those things, like, people liked me more, because I don't know, I guess they thought I was being, some people thought I wasn't being genuine when I was trying to be kind and friendly or whatever the whole time. I don't think I was being insincere. I thought about it very hard, and I made a conscious decision to embody that vibe. And so then now, when I have like one thread where I'm kind of angry and ranty, people like it. They feel like it makes me more real to them. I am always real, motherfuckers. You fucking assholes with your projections and your assumptions and your the idea that, this person, like this Twitter account or this YouTube account represents who this person is. Obviously not. But that doesn't mean I'm not real. Fuckers. Right? My god. But anyway, what I realized after 20 plus tweets of examples in is that actually I didn't have to say any of those things, because the core opinion that I have that people dislike me for, some people dislike me for, is that I think that I have the right to say things and to make videos. This is a 26-minute video so far. Who the fuck makes 26-minute videos on YouTube about their opinions? Like, who the fuck do I think I am? That's your frame, not mine. I think anybody is allowed to make any video they want. Anybody is allowed to tweet anything they want. You can write books and essays and novels even if no one knows who you are or cares what you're about. But deciding to do things involves having the opinion. So the opinion that I have, that other people, not everyone, but some other people despise, is that I value myself. I value my opinions. I value my beliefs. I have reason for valuing these things. I've thought about these things really hard. I've worked on these things really hard for a very long time. I care about my opinions. I care about my beliefs. I believe that I have a right to speak. I believe that I have a right to write. I believe that I can and should share these things with the public, right, in the mainstream public comments. Some people don't like that. Some people think that is... And like, if I wanted to not be disliked, I would stop. Like, if I wanted to not be disliked, I wouldn't be tweeting and I wouldn't be making videos. People intrinsically dislike me for that. Not all people, right? Like, but there is this active status regulation crew, right? This volunteer crew of semi-anonymous or totally anonymous folks who have a problem with anybody else trying to do anything. And, I have thicker skin than lots of people. I have a longer history of an experience of being in the limelight or spotlight. Like, I have a weird name. I'm brown. Like, I can't not be seen. I can't hide in the crowd, right? And so I'm used to always getting unpleasant and unwanted attention that I didn't ask for. And so if I'm going to be getting all this attention, I'm going to do something with it, right? So I have that frame. And so for me, it's never really felt like an option. And I mean, well, I can choose to try and hide, but it's so difficult for me to hide that I might as well, live my life. And I've gotten good at doing this. It's a skill that I've developed, and I'm not gonna give up my skills and my abilities and whatnot just because some guy thinks I'm too much for him. Like, fuck him, right? And so this has been a bit of a rambly thing, but I'm gonna stop it at 30 minutes and just, I guess I want to conclude by saying, if you want to try something, if you want to do something, if you want to start a band, if you want to start a blog, a podcast, whatever it is, I support you. Even if you have no authority or no background or there's no reason, you can do whatever the fuck you want to do. I support that. I can't promise to be friends with everybody who, I will try. I'm here. If you leave a comment, I will try to reply. It makes me very angry because I think about all the people who in fact have something to say that is of use, of value to the world, and they don't do it because they are aware that there are status regulators in the world who will like push back against them, and it's unpleasant. People don't want to face that. It's not fun. I've lived my whole life being, annoyed by the nuisance of the peanut gallery or whatever, right? And it is what it is. It probably will never go away. So those of us who want to make things and play and have fun should make more of an effort to find each other and support each other, because the haters will never stop. Right? And so to recap, doing anything publicly over a period of time substantially is an invitation to be disliked. It is. It just is. There's no avoiding that. Whatever you do, whether you're doing makeup tutorials or whether you're doing whatever kind of video you want to make, whatever kind of tweets you want to tweet, like when you start getting attention, other people won't like it. So, all the best to you guys, and done.